Clara Montenegro, a woman accustomed to the weight of her last name, had learned early on to maintain an impeccable posture. The power of her family was her armor, but also her prison. Beneath the facade of control and privilege lay a soul marked by loneliness and the overwhelming pressures of a fate mapped out by others. That night, as the storm raged and the lonely road seemed endless, Clara found herself more vulnerable than ever before. The engine of her luxury car suddenly stalled, leaving her at the mercy of the relentless rain. Amidst flashes of lightning, Raphael appeared, a young driver whose face bore a rare kindness. He did not hesitate to offer help, even in the face of the glaring difference between their worlds. The contrast between the two was palpable. Raphael, in simple clothes with calloused hands, radiated an honesty that disarmed Clara. His curious and warm eyes seemed to see beyond the masks she wore. For Clara, his presence was a breath of fresh air amidst the suffocating world of appearances she inhabited. Raphael had his own dreams. Working as a driver, he held stories in his mind that he wished to one day write. Upon meeting Clara, he saw in her more than the glamorous woman she appeared to be. He perceived someone who, like him, bore the weight of others' expectations. Clara, in turn, found in Raphael a muse of a different nature. His outlook on life made her question everything she deemed important. As the two began to interact more frequently, their differences became both a barrier and a foundation. Raphael spoke of his literary aspirations, of how he wanted to tell stories that gave voice to the invisible. Listening to him, Clara began to wonder if her own life was a narrative written by other hands. The thought unsettled her deeply. "You think stories can change people's lives?" Clara asked one day as they walked side by side after one of their furtive encounters. "I believe stories reveal who we truly are," Raphael replied with a thoughtful smile. "And you, Clara? What would be the story you would like to tell?" His words echoed in her mind. In the silence that followed, Clara felt the uncomfortable truth settling in. She did not know the answer. As their meetings became more frequent, the bonds between Clara and Raphael tightened. But with that came challenges. Clara faced the growing pressure of an arranged marriage that pushed her further into the abyss of a life she did not choose. Her parents, concerned with business alliances, saw the engagement as a guarantee of a solid future for the Montenegros. Raphael, on the other hand, bore the weight of his community's criticism. To them, he was venturing into dangerous territory, getting involved with someone whose world could never comprehend theirs. Prejudice was a constant shadow, and Raphael felt doubts accumulating. Would the love he felt for Clara be strong enough to withstand the opposing forces surrounding them? As they explored the city together, Clara began to see things from a new perspective. Raphael took her to places that, although simple, had soul. These moments contrasted sharply with the cold and opulent halls where her family held events. More than that, she began to discover that her family's business was not as perfect as it seemed. "Raphael," she said hesitantly one night, "did you know my family has business in this area?" "I know," he replied carefully, "and I also know that these businesses have not been good for the people here." Raphael's words opened a wound in Clara. How could she love someone who suffered because of her family's actions? How could she continue to be loyal to an empire built at the expense of others' lives? The relationship between the two became increasingly complex. Clara, torn between the love that made her feel alive and her loyalty to her family, began to question who she really was. Raphael, in turn, faced a moral battle. Discovering that the Montenegro company harmed his community placed him in a deep dilemma. Should he protect Clara or denounce the injustices committed by her family? The weight of their choices began to shape the destiny of both. The storm that had united their paths now seemed ready to break again, this time with irreversible consequences. Clara Montenegro knew that her life was built on a solid but inflexible foundation. The Montenegro Empire provided power and security but demanded absolute obedience. The price of her privileged position was a freedom she had never truly known. The idea of breaking away from everything that had been molded for her terrified her, as if each attempt to escape pulled her back into the center of the web. As Clara struggled against her own chains, Raphael was also fighting an internal battle. He wondered if it was fair to put Clara in the position of choosing between their love and her family. He heard whispers in the community, insinuations that were thorns in his soul. "You're fooling yourself, Raphael. She won't trade her world for you. People like her live in another universe." These words repeated like a mantra, but Raphael tried to ignore them. He saw something in Clara that no one else seemed to see. The woman behind the Montenegro surname, someone who longed for authenticity as much as he did. However, the doubts continued to haunt him. Was he enough for her? One night, the tension surrounding them found temporary relief as they walked under the pale light of the moon. The sky appeared tranquil, but Clara and Raphael's hearts were in turmoil. "Raphael, sometimes I feel like I'm trapped in a cage that I helped build myself," Clara confessed, her voice hesitant but filled with emotion. "I have everything, but that means nothing. I'm not happy." Raphael looked at her, the sincerity of her words touching something deep within him. "I understand a little, Clara. It's not easy to live when you feel like you'll never be good enough for the world around you. But I learned one thing. The cage only holds us as long as we believe we don't have the strength to open it." Clara wanted to believe him, but fear was a persistent companion. How could she give up the life she knew without losing herself in the process? That week, the pressure Clara felt intensified when her mother brought up the topic of the arranged marriage with calculated coldness. "You know this is what's best for you and our family, don't you, Clara? The alliances are essential to maintain our power. This isn't just about you. It's about all of us." Her mother's words were sharply pragmatic, but each syllable seemed to wound Clara. The young woman couldn't find the courage to retort. The idea of disappointing her parents suffocated her. But the thought of following a path that wasn't hers terrified her even more. Meanwhile, Raphael faced his own pressures. The community friends, although well-intentioned, reinforced his insecurities. "Raphael, don't be naive. Clara is amazing, but her world is out of reach for you. She will never give all of this up." Those words echoed in his mind, planting doubts about the strength of their love. He questioned himself. Was he forcing Clara to make impossible choices? The world seemed to conspire against them, and tensions grew even more when Raphael began investigating the Montenegro family business. What he discovered shook his heart. Corrupt practices, shady deals, and a direct impact on the community where he grew up. Raphael's moral dilemma became unbearable. He knew confronting Clara with the truth would be painful, but ignoring what he had discovered was impossible. "I love Clara, but how can I turn a blind eye to what her family is doing?" Raphael thought as he walked alone through the streets of his community. He knew any choice would bring pain, the question was for whom. Clara and Raphael continued to meet in secret, like two conspirators in a forbidden romance. Their conversations became more intense, diving into their fears and aspirations. "Raphael, do you think I can be more than this? More than a name on a list of heirs?" Clara asked one night, her voice laden with vulnerability. "You are already more than that, Clara. You just need to believe in yourself. You are stronger than you think," Raphael replied, his gaze conveying unwavering faith in her. Those words were a comfort, but also a burden. Clara didn't want to disappoint him, but doubt continued to erode her certainties. What did she really want for herself? And how could she be sure that her choices wouldn't destroy what was beginning to build with Raphael? As the days passed, the inevitable drew closer. Clara knew she would have to choose between love and loyalty, between an uncertain future and the security of her current life. The shadows of the Montenegro Empire pursued her as the warmth of Raphael's love pushed her toward the light. But what would she do when the moment came? Could Clara find the courage to open the cage, even without knowing what awaited her on the other side? Clara's internal struggle began to overflow into every aspect of her life. Her previously composed expression was now permeated by vacant stares and sighs she couldn't disguise. Each passing day, her family's expectations became more suffocating, like invisible chains tightening around her heart. The engagement event was approaching, and the pressure to maintain the perfect facade was overwhelming. As Clara tried to understand her own feelings, Raphael also found himself surrounded by a whirlwind of doubts. With every conversation with friends, He felt his love for Clara was being called into question. Their words echoed in his mind, like voices trying to convince him he didn't belong in that world. Do you think you can compete with the luxury and stability her family offers? This isn't going to end well, Raphael. Despite trying to push those thoughts away, they consumed him. Raphael wanted to be the support Clara needed, but at the same time he wondered, would it be fair to ask her to give up everything for him? That night, as the stars shone in the clear sky, Clara and Raphael met again. The shadows of the moon partially concealed their faces, but they couldn't hide the emotions overflowing in their voices. Raphael, sometimes I feel like I'm drowning, Clara said, her tone heavy with despair. I want to be who you believe I can be, but what do I do if I fail? And if I lose everything? Raphael took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Failing is not the end, Clara. Sometimes, it's just the beginning. The truth can hurt, but it can also set you free. If we want to change, we have to believe we can face it together. His words were a comfort, but also a reminder of what was at stake. The idea of breaking away from the world she knew was too frightening to face alone. And yet, Clara knew choices were approaching, like an inevitable storm. Meanwhile, Raphael confronted a truth he could not ignore. After infiltrating a community meeting, he discovered that the Montenegro company's practices were not just corrupt, they were destructive. Exploration of resources, manipulation of influences, and direct impacts on the lives of those around them. And Clara, even without intending to, was one of the faces associated with all of this. Raphael wondered, pacing back and forth in his small room, how he could tell her. If he hurt her, he would be destroying the only good thing he had found. Yet morality was a weight he could not ignore. The truth needed to be told, but the doubt about how Clara would react paralyzed him. The announcement of an event organized by Clara's mother brought the conflict to a new level. The party would be the moment Clara introduced her fiancé, a young heir from another powerful family. For Clara, the mere thought of attending this celebration was suffocating. She murmured to herself while observing her reflection in the mirror that she could not do it. But how would she face her mother? Or Raphael? And what if she destroyed everything trying to be honest? On the night of the event, the dress Clara wore felt more like armor. The sparkle of the jewelry around her neck was a reminder of her position but also a heavy burden. Each step toward the entrance of the hall felt harder than the last. Then, in a moment of clarity, Clara decided she needed time. Time to reflect, to breathe, to be herself. Instead of entering the hall, Clara escaped to one of the outdoor gardens, where the fresh air and silence were a welcome pause. She knew she had to face her family's expectations and the realities of her life. But that night, she just wanted to feel free, even if just for a few moments. "Do you want to know what I want?" Clara said, her voice heavy with emotion and determination. She looked directly into her mother's eyes, feeling the weight of expectations and the strength of her own desire for freedom collide within her. The entire hall fell silent. Every guest seemed frozen, waiting for the outcome of that unusual scene. "I want to live my life. I want to make my choices. I don't want to be just a name on a list of heirs, a pawn in the game of power. I need to be myself." Her mother, still perplexed, seemed to struggle against her daughter's words. "Clara, you don't understand what you are saying. This isn't just about you. It's about your family, our legacy. Everything we've built is at stake." But Clara did not back down. For the first time, she felt her voice carried the weight of her own convictions. "And what is a legacy, Mother, if it comes at the cost of my happiness? Of who I really am? I love you, but I can't continue living a life I didn't choose." Meanwhile, Raphael watched the scene with attention and concern. Clara's firm stance was inspiring, but he knew the consequences would be significant. He took a deep breath, gathering the courage to intervene. "Mrs. Montenegro," he began, his voice respectful but firm. "I know this is difficult for you, but Clara is not being irrational. She is being true. And sometimes, being true is the hardest and most necessary thing we can do." Clara's mother turned her gaze to him again, this time filled with disdain and anger. "You don't understand anything about what it takes to maintain a family like ours. Don't interfere. But Raphael remained calm. With all due respect, maybe that's what needs to change. Perhaps it's time to realize that Clara is more than just a part of a system. The tension reached its peak. The murmurs from the guests began to rise again, and Clara realized that every word she spoke was being analyzed by dozens of attentive eyes. She felt the heat rise in her face, but the determination kept her steady. "I don't know what the future holds," Clara said, her voice now loud and clear. "But I know that I can't live for appearances. I need something real, something that makes me happy. And Mother, if you can't understand that now, I hope you will one day." Her mother stepped back as if she had been struck. But instead of continuing to argue, she simply looked at Clara, her eyes mixing anger and perhaps something deeper, an unexpected hurt. Clara felt the weight on her chest begin to lift. The decision to speak her truth liberated her in a way she never imagined possible. Raphael, by her side, reached out to her, offering silent support. She accepted, and together, the two began to leave the hall, leaving behind the voices, the looks, and the expectations. Clara knew that the road ahead would be uncertain and full of challenges, but for the first time, she felt she was in control of her own story. "You were amazing," Raphael said as they walked through the garden illuminated by the soft light of the night. "I feel light, but at the same time, I know this is just the beginning," Clara replied. "No matter what comes next, we will face it together." Clara looked at Raphael, and for the first time that night, she smiled sincerely. She knew there was still much to resolve with her family, with the Montenegro legacy, and with the discoveries Raphael was holding back. But now, she felt ready to face it all. As the cool night air enveloped Clara and Raphael, the weight of the exchanged words in the hall still echoed in her mind. Every phrase spoken, every glance received, was a reminder that this had been the boldest moment of her life. And while a part of her felt fear, another filled with hope, a spark of something new. Clara began, looking at the starry sky. "I never imagined I would have the courage to confront my mother like that. It was as if, for the first time, I had truly chosen something for myself." Raphael, walking beside her, smiled. "And that's exactly what you did. It's not easy to break away from expectations, Clara. But you did it. That makes you stronger than you think." Despite the feeling of freedom, Clara knew that the consequences of her choice would soon come. Her mother would likely not accept the decision easily. The repercussions among the guests, society, and even within the Montenegro Empire would be inevitable. For a moment, she wondered if she was prepared for the storm that would come. What if my mother cuts all ties? What if she uses her power to force me to go back? Clara asked, her voice trembling. Raphael stopped and turned to her. "You said something back there that stuck with me. That maybe you don't know what's to come, but you need to discover who you really are. That's courage. And whatever the next step is, we will face it together." These words were a balm to Clara's soul. For the first time, she felt that she was not alone. Raphael was her safe harbor amid the chaos. But Raphael also carried a burden. The discovery of the corrupt practices of the Montenegro company was a bombshell he knew he would need to reveal. The loyalty he felt for Clara made him hesitate, but he knew the truth had to come to light. As they walked, Raphael felt the need to address the issue. "Clara, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice low and filled with hesitation. "It's about your family's company." Clara stopped and turned to him. "What is it? What did you find out?" Raphael took a deep breath, the words piling up in his throat. "I've been investigating some things. I spoke with people from the community, and I found out that your company is involved in practices that directly harm the people here. It's something big, Clara, and I didn't know how to tell you before." The revelation hit Clara like a punch to the stomach. Her heart raced, and her mind filled with questions. "Corrupt practices? Raphael, are you sure about this?" "I am," he replied firmly. "And I'm not saying this to hurt you, but you need to know, because if you really want to start building your life, maybe it's time to confront the truth about what supports it." Clara felt the ground beneath her feet dissolve. Everything she believed about her family, everything that had sustained her until that moment, now seemed fragile and contaminated. She thought about what her mother always said about the Montenegro legacy, about the sacrifices necessary to maintain power. But what if that power was tainted? I don't know what to do, Raphael. If this is true, what does it mean for me? For my family? Raphael held her hands. It means you have the chance to change things, to do things differently. But it has to come from you, Clara. No one else can decide this for you. Clara's mind was in turmoil. She knew she would need time to process everything, but one thing was certain. She could no longer ignore the dark secrets Raphael had revealed. This would be the next big confrontation, and she needed to be ready for it. Clara walked toward the house, feeling the weight of the moment intensify with each step. The soft lights coming from the Montenegro mansion seemed more threatening than welcoming. Her mother's figure, always impeccable and controlling, awaited her like a shadow of all the decisions she still had to face. Raphael, by her side, was a silent reminder of strength and support, but he knew this battle was Clara's. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice firm but with a tone of tenderness. Clara took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I know I need to do this. I can't keep living in fear of disappointing my mother or losing my family. I need to be true to myself." Raphael nodded, lightly holding her hand before letting it go. "You are stronger than you think. Remember that." Upon entering the main room, Clara found her mother sitting on the sofa, with an expression of restrained concern. The atmosphere was silent, almost as if the house was holding its breath along with them. As soon as their eyes met, the tension materialized in the air. "You finally returned," her mother said, her voice firm but tinged with a tone Clara recognized as disappointment. "I hoped you would have had time to reflect on your actions." Clara hesitated for a moment, but something inside her, something Raphael had helped cultivate, made her stand firm. "I reflected, Mom, and I think that's the problem. I've spent my whole life reflecting on what you all expected of me, but I never stopped to think about what I wanted." The expression on her mother's face hardened, but she didn't interrupt. Clara took that as an invitation to continue. "I love you. I love our family, but I can't live like this anymore. I accepted that engagement because I thought it was right for everyone, except for me. I did it because I was afraid of disappointing you. But now I realize that the biggest mistake was abandoning myself in the process." Clara's mother stood up, her face a mix of surprise and pain. "Clara, do you think this family is perfect? That I haven't made sacrifices to get where I am? Everything we do is for the stability of all of us." Clara felt the weight of her mother's words, but she didn't let herself be shaken. "I understand, Mom, but I can't be just a reflection of your sacrifices. I need to be myself. I need to have the right to make my own mistakes, to chart my own path." Clara's mother hesitated, and something in her posture changed. "You talk about authenticity and freedom, but what do you know about the consequences of what you're asking? There's much more at stake here than you realize." Clara frowned. "What do you mean? You think that keeping this family means just maintaining appearances? There are tough decisions, Clara. Things you might not want to know." The mention of tough decisions sent a shiver down Clara's spine. She recalled what Raphael had told her about the Montenegro company and the corrupt practices affecting his community. She felt a wave of nausea. "Mom, are you talking about the company? About what we're involved in?" Her mother's silence was her answer. "You knew," Clara continued, her voice rising, "and yet you kept defending this as our family's legacy?" Her mother finally looked at her, her face hardened. "You don't understand. This isn't about wanting or not. It's about survival, about maintaining everything your father built. If we don't do this, someone else will, and we'll be ruined." Clara felt the ground crumble beneath her feet. "So is this it? Our family's legacy is to harm people? To steal from them to maintain our status?" She knew this moment was crucial. She could back down, accept her mother's justifications, and continue pretending that nothing was wrong, or she could choose a harder, but truthful path. Her heart raced, but Raphael's voice echoed in her mind. "Sometimes, we have to leave something behind to move forward." "Mom, I can't be part of this anymore," Clara said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. If this is what sustains our family, then I don't want this legacy anymore. There are other ways, honest ways to rebuild who we are. Clara's mother shook her head, incredulous. You're talking like a child. You have no idea what you're asking for. Without this, we lose everything. Then let it be, Clara replied with determination. I'd rather lose everything than continue living a lie. And if that means starting from scratch, I'm ready. When Clara left the room, she felt that something inside her had changed forever. There was no turning back. The path she chose would be full of difficulties. But for the first time, it was hers. Raphael was waiting outside for her. Upon seeing her, he noticed that something had changed in her posture. A sense of strength and conviction. And then, he asked. Clara took a deep breath. I did what needed to be done. Now it's time to find a new way to live. One that is mine. Raphael smiled, reaching out his hand to her. I knew you could do it. Clara took his hand, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. The future was still uncertain, but now she knew she could face it with courage and authenticity. Together, they took the next step into the unknown, not as an escape but as a new beginning. Morning arrived, bringing with it the lightness of new beginnings. Clara watched the sun bathing the studio where her canvases were spread out, each representing a piece of her journey. The vibrant colors told stories of pain, self-discovery, and, above all, hope. She took a deep breath, feeling grateful for all she had learned in the past months. Her relationship with her mother had undergone profound transformations. Total acceptance still seemed distant, but the two previously opposing worlds were now finding points of contact. Sitting at the kitchen table one ordinary morning, Clara's mother looked at her with a softer expression. Clara, she began, I see now that I tried to mold you in my image because I was afraid. Afraid that you weren't strong enough to face the world. But what you did showed me the opposite. The words touched Clara deeply. She held her mother's hand, feeling a new connection forming. I know it's hard for you, Mom, but even with all our differences, I want you to know that I love you, and I hope we can continue to understand each other. Her mother smiled, a small but genuine smile. I'm still learning, my daughter, but I want to try. For you. Clara's transformation was visible not only to her mother but also to everyone around her. The confidence she had developed shone in her eyes and guided her actions. Her days were now filled with art classes, gatherings with friends, and deep conversations with Raphael. Raphael remained by Clara's side, as a loyal friend and a constant source of inspiration. They didn't rush their relationship, allowing the connection between them to grow naturally. During one of their many walks through the city, Clara remarked, I feel like I'm finally learning to live, Raphael. Not just for others, but for myself. He smiled, gently touching her shoulder. And that's the Clara I always knew was there, waiting to be discovered. Clara found purpose in her story. She decided to share her experiences through lectures and support groups. In one of those lectures, she looked at the audience and said, The path to freedom and authenticity isn't easy. It's filled with fears and doubts, but every step, no matter how small, is an act of courage. And when we take those steps, we discover we are much stronger than we imagined. The words resonated with so many people that Clara realized the impact she could have. She began to create a support network for those who, like her, sought the courage to be authentic. Although the past still cast occasional shadows, Clara learned to deal with them. Raphael helped her find balance, reminding her that doubts are part of the journey. One night, while gazing at the starry sky in the same place where so many deep conversations had taken place, Raphael turned to her. And now, Clara, what comes next? She smiled, looking into the infinity. I don't know exactly, but I know I want to keep exploring, learning, and helping others find their voices. The rest I'll figure out along the way. Clara gazed at the night sky from the terrace of her studio, where the gentle breeze carried the promise of a new beginning. The stars twinkled as if celebrating the journey she had traveled. In her hands, a cup of tea warmed her fingers as she reflected on everything that had changed, not just around her, but within herself. The unexpected friendship with Raphael had become the foundation for her transformation. He was not just a friend or advisor, but someone who had helped her see herself clearly, even in the most challenging moments. Raphael had given her the space and support to discover her strength, and Clara knew that this was a rare gift. "Clara," Raphael said as he joined her on the terrace, "do you realize how much you've changed?" Clara smiled. "I know I'm not the same person I was months ago. I finally understood that change is less about what we leave behind and more about what we choose to embrace." Clara and her mother now shared a bond that once seemed impossible. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but perfection was no longer the goal. During a recent breakfast, her mother had said something that still echoed in Clara's heart. "I took a while to realize, but you were right. True strength lies in being honest with oneself. You taught me that, and I couldn't be prouder of you." Clara knew that hearing those words was a milestone. Her mother was changing too, learning to question her old beliefs and see life in a more genuine way. Clara's studio had become a vibrant space where people from different backgrounds gathered to share, learn, and create. Her art classes were not just about techniques but about exploring emotions and expressing oneself freely. During one session, a shy student had confided, "Clara, I always thought I had nothing to say, but now I see that my voice matters." These moments reaffirmed for Clara that her journey was not just about her own healing, but also about helping others find their truths. She felt that her story was a beacon, and with each person she touched, her purpose gained more meaning. Her relationship with Raphael had also evolved. What had begun as a sincere and loyal friendship was now blossoming into something deeper. They shared dreams, talked about the future, and laughed together at the simple things in life. Raphael encouraged her to keep exploring and believing in herself, while she inspired him to pursue his own dreams. "You know what I admire most about you?" Raphael asked one day as they walked through a street fair. "What?" Clara replied, curious. "Your ability to turn pain into something beautiful. It's as if each of your scars is a work of art." These words stayed with Clara, reminding her that the beauty of life lies in accepting its imperfections. Clara decided that her story needed to be shared beyond local gatherings. She began writing a book about her journey, intertwining accounts of her experiences with reflections on self-discovery and authenticity. Each chapter was an invitation for others to find the courage to embrace their truths. "I want people to know," she told Raphael as they discussed the project, "that no matter how lost they feel, there is always a path to the light. Authenticity is not the destination. It's the journey." That night, as Clara and Raphael toasted with juice, she felt the weight of the past finally dissolve. It wasn't as if the challenges had disappeared. The world still held uncertainties, but now she knew she had the tools to face them. "To authenticity," Raphael said, raising his glass. "And to the stories we still have to tell," Clara added, smiling confidently. Clara understood that her journey was just beginning. Her story, marked by challenges and triumphs, served as a reminder that life is not about following a predefined script but about writing one's own. As the starry sky stretched above her, Clara took a deep breath, feeling fully alive. The future was a mystery, but for the first time, she faced it with enthusiasm. Happiness wasn't in reaching a specific goal but in being true to herself every step of the way. And so, with a smile on her face and a heart full of gratitude, Clara moved forward, ready to continue her journey, knowing that no matter what happened, she would always have the power to rewrite her own story. Do you like love stories? Those stories full of romance, emotion, and, of course, happy endings? Or maybe just endings? Have you ever experienced a moment so strange or unusual that it seems straight out of a movie? Then you're in the right place. Here, we love to share stories that touch the heart, inspire, and make you think. But we want to hear from you. Share in the comments your love story, that special moment, or even something that made you believe in the power of true feelings. Maybe your experience will inspire us to tell a new story in the future. Imagine seeing your story transformed into a tale that can move other people around the world. And if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. This not only motivates me, but also shows me that sharing these experiences makes a difference. After all, Together we can create a space full of love, empathy, and good stories. So come on, like, comment, and of course, share. Maybe the next chapter will be inspired by you.